Hello there and welcome to Black Jackal Gaming. The Space Marine indexes and points have been out for a week or so we've had a bit of time to synthesize all the information. I'm going to rank each chapter that's got models available for them. I'm going to go through each one in alphabetical order, just to make things a bit easier. For the chapters that have their own index, they can take the units from the Space Marine index, but some of them do have restrictions on what they can and can't take. You can only take models from one chapter. Whilst you can take the Space Marine units into whatever other chapter you want, you are locked to certain characters. So if you wanted to take Dante, for example, you then couldn't turn around and take one of the Imperial Fist characters. First up we have Black Templars. They do have some restrictions. They cannot take any form of Psyker unit, and they can only take Gladiators and Repulsors that are within the Black Templars index, because they are slightly different to what you'll find in the Space Marines index. Black Templars have Templar vows rather than doctrines, although they can choose to take doctrines, but the vows are quite useful. There's 4 to choose from. One of them gives you lethal hits on melee weapons, the other one is a 6 Infernal Pain and a leadership characteristic of 5. There's an anti-psyker ability, which gives you 4 up and vulnerable save against psychic attacks in melee as well. And then the final one gives you sustained hit 1 in melee. If you're taking the Templar's vows, then you do lose some of the stratagems and relics. However, the stratagems and relics in the Black Templar index are quite good, so you won't be missing anything. You're very likely to take the Templar vows rather than the Gladys Task Force. They have quite a few character units that are all good to very good. None of them stand out as being terrible. They've got special troop choices such as the Crusader squads. Gives you a little bit more flexibility of what you can take and the size of your squad, because you can get up to 21 models in a troop unit. You can get the likes of Sword Brethren, which are essentially Blade Guard veterans without the shield, but then they come with a little bit more flexibility on the weapons they can take as well. They're kind of a combination of them and Stern Guard veterans. All in all, it's a really good looking chapter. It looks like it's in a very healthy position, and at the start of 10th I expect these to be one of your more top of the line chapters. They might not be pushing the top of the meta in tournaments, but as far as Space Marine chapters go, I think these are very comfortable A tier chapter. Next up we have Blood Angels. They have the detachment role of Red Thirst, which can replace your doctrines and your Gladys Force. This essentially means when you charge, you get +1 to your strength and attack characteristic for melee weapons. So quite a good one if you're going for a more combat orientated Blood Angels army. Again, they've come with some good stratagems and good enhancements, so you're not going to miss too much from the Space Marine faction. They come with a plethora of special characters for you to choose from. Some more pricey than others, but all of them look like they serve a purpose. None of them stand out as bad. The most iconic specialist unit, the Sanguinary Guard, although they do look good, they are very expensive for 10th edition, so I don't expect to see too many of these on the tabletop. They really do need a points reduction, because they're just far too expensive for what they can do in the tabletop. Like the other chapters that have their own index, there's just so many options for you to choose from, whether it be elite choices, there's some vehicle choices that you can't take elsewhere. They're just a very good all-round faction that does heavily lead into the melee, but there's nothing to prevent you from having a combined arms force, or even trying to lean a little bit into the shooting and then using the melee as backup. I think just because of the price points for their really good units, they're probably going to be a top B army at the moment. If they had just a couple of units that had a little bit of a price drop, you'd see them pushing more into A, especially into the middle of A. But just having too many units that are slightly expensive for what they do really hurts them. So they're a solid B faction at the moment. Up next we have the first of the Space Marine Index chapters, being Crimson Fists. Now they only have one special unit they can take, and that's the Chapter Master, Pedro Cantor. As the Space Marine Index is quite good, and it's relatively cheap for a lot of the things you can do, and there's lots of combos that could be had, it automatically makes a lot of these chapters quite good. So a lot of the ranking is going to be based on what special units they can bring, what they do, and essentially are they better than the poster boy of the index, which is the Ultramarines. So Petra comes with 2 good abilities, one of them being once a battle, allowing the unit he's attached in to have +1 to their attacks characteristics by weapons they carry. This is for both ranged and melee. He can join the Stir Guard veteran unit, so having 10 combi bolters, all with that +1 attack gives 20 attacks. Now when we've got that devastating wound on infantry of 4+, this is really going to ramp up the ability to push out damage and just murder ball everything. His other ability allows +1 to the hit roll and wound roll when the squad's below half strength, so again quite a good ability to have. Just on the basis that they've got 1 special unit and he's relatively good, I'm going to put these into C. There's not really a reason to take Crimson Fists over any of the other factions, so even though he's a good character, he doesn't really do anything to move the dial at all, so a solid C army. Next up we have Caliban's own Dark Angels. Lionel Johnson's returned at the end of 9th and come back in 10th looking exceptional. These guys can swap out the Gladys Task Force doctrines for Grim Resolve. So if these guys ever fail the Battle Shock test and the Battle Shocked, instead of being 0 OC, the models in the unit are 1 OC. So it's going to be very hard to take objectives away from these guys or stop them from being able to use stratagems. Now, because this is just an index, there's no difference between the different wings, so you can mix and match as you see fit, which is quite nice. There's a plethora of different characters you can use for all different variations of style of play you want. You can have a HQ choice on a jet bike. There's souped up speeders in the forms of the Talon Master. There's different types of chaplains, different types of librarians, various different characters with various different weapons. All in all, there's a lot to go through in here. There's a lot you can use. There's a lot of flexibility. The Dog Angels basically stole the rules from everyone else. So the poor White Scars don't get to be White Scars because Ravenwing gets that, which is a bit of a shame, but it just means that if you are a Dark Angels player, you have so many different options, and because you're not restricted to the wings, it doesn't matter what's bad, what's not playing right, you're going to always have options to play. This index is outstanding. There's a lot of very good units in it, and you can use the ones from the normal Space Marine ones. And as well as that, you have the Lion. He is back, he is glowed up, he is hard to kill, he hits hard in combat. His range weapons aren't too bad, he gives out a lot of abilities. This is an S tier army. This is right up there, and it's going to be hard to challenge. There is one challenger, but it's going to be very hard to challenge this army, especially for Space Marines armies, because you're just going to play so well into them. Next up we have Deathwatch, who would have been even higher if it wasn't for the fact that one of the combinations you could put together has already been nerfed pre-release. So Deathwatch are your anti-Xenos army, and basically it's all the veterans pushed together from all the chapters. So it's a big mismatch of different models and different units. There's a lot of restrictions in place and a lot of things to go to, and that will be needing a whole separate unit on it. Basically this faction plays completely different to the rest of the factions just because it's so elite and so different in how each unit operates. So essentially you set up all your little kill teams that you want, and then you can choose their detachment rule, which is Black Spear Task Force. So at the start of the command phase you can choose one of 3 abilities, one of them giving your weapon sustain hit 1, the other one giving your weapons lethal hits, and the final one giving you precision when you get critical hits. So all quite good, all serve the purpose, and they're about par with the Gladys Task Force, so you're not losing anything there. Again, like with the other ones, they all come with some well-rounded, good stratagems and enhancements, especially now that there's been a bit of a nerf in here. So you're not going to really lose out on much by choosing the detachment for Deathwatch. They come with so many different types of squads and elites and matchups and combinations that it's going to take a long time for the community to really go through and get the best out of what this codex can do. There's lots of flexibility. There's a massive amount of combinations you can put together, and it all comes down to player skill and pricing. The pricing at the moment is a little bit high because they are seen as an elite force, and they operate as an elite force as well. So it's really going to come down to planning out your routes of attack, the channels you want to go down, the pressure points and death zones you want to set up, and how you're going to run your attacks in waves to maximize your mobility and damage throughout the game. This is really a thinking man's faction. So very good in good hands, but can be very difficult to play at the same time. I think if you're a decent player, you should be able to get your head around it quite quickly. They are a really good A tier faction. Next up we have Flesh Tearers, baby blood angels. They only come with one special character. They come with the chapter master Gabriel Seth. Now if you take Gabriel, you cannot take any more epic heroes from Blood Angels, but you can use all of their core units such as Sanguinary Guard and the priests and Death Company and the likes of them. So even though he does have a decent profile and he can let the unit he's leading advance and charge, and he gives additional attacks when he's in combat, and his Blood Reaver chainsword is really good. He's got a good profile, but there's not really much he can join. He can join Vanguard veteran squads and assault squad, which are the two main ones that he should really be joining, but they are the variants on foot, so you're not really going to get the most out of him by doing so. Unless you really love Flesh Tearers, there's no reason to take him whatsoever, because you just lose out on too many special characters from Blood Angels, so you might as well just go Blood Angels. Because of that, I'm going to slide him in just after Blood Angels in the tier list. They're a B tier army, because they're taking everything the Blood Angels can. They're just missing out on some of the characters, which makes them a bit weaker. Next up we have the Fisty Boys, the Imperial Fists. They come with just the normal Space Marines index, so can take everything as everyone else can, and they do come with two special characters. First up is Adarnath Lysander. He's a captain in Terminator armor. He can deep strike like usual. He's got really good melee weapon in the Fist of Dawn. He comes with two decent abilities, the first one being if the unit he's targeted, the strength characteristic of the attack is greater than or equal to the toughness of the unit, which would be toughness 5. Then you subtract 1 to the wound roll, which is quite good for keeping your Terminators around for a bit longer. Once from battle, he can turn his invulnerability save until a save of 2+, which is very good. Next up we got Tor Garadon, who's in Gravis armor, coming with the Handed Defiance, a very good melee weapon. It comes with a grav gun that's anti-vehicle 2+, which is really good. This guy essentially just hates vehicles. He comes with two abilities, one of them allowing him to, when he targets a monster vehicle or fortification, he improves the strength, armor penetration and damage characteristics by 2 of his melee weapons. Oh, that's by his range weapons as well, actually, not just his melee weapons. So this guy really can take out the larger units he's targeting. The other one gives the unit he's attached to, which will be a Gravis unit, lethal hit and ignores cover. So we can join an aggressor squad, but you're probably taking the flame aggressors, so he's completely useless with them, but being teamed up with an eradicator squad might make him very useful. I really like these two characters. I think they both serve a purpose, and they can make you take Imperial Fists if you want to lean in that direction. Because of that, I'm going to put them in B tier, but after Flesh Tearers, just because they don't get the range of units that Flesh Tearers can get, being a Blood Angel baby faction. We have Iron Hands next. they're once again in the Space Marines Index. They only come with one special character. They come with Ironfather Feroz. He comes with some decent melee weapons. They're more along the lines of more being anti-Terminator weapons than anything else. Got some okay ranged weapons to go with it. He does come with 2 abilities though. Oh, sorry, 3 abilities. The unit he's leading, which will be a Gravis unit, gets a 5 up funeral pain. He can heal a friendly vehicle unit within 3 inches for 3 wounds in the command phase. That vehicle also then gets to add 1 to the hit roll for the rest of that round. And if he's by himself and within 3 inches of an Astartes vehicle, he will get the lone operative keyword. So what you're basically getting from him is a more expensive Tech Marine that gives a 5 up funeral pain. So really not worth losing out on some of the other characters you can take just to take a slightly better Tech Marine. Because of that, and because with Crimson Fist you can actually take a Tech Marine as well, I'm going to slide him in behind there because there's really no reason to take Iron Hands unless you're a massive Iron Hands fan. Next up are the Raven Guard, that once again just come with 1 special character. His name is Kavar Strike, and he's a Primaris character that actually comes with a jump pack, which is quite cool. So he comes out with a pistol that's okay and twin linked lightning claws, even though it's very difficult for him to use one set. It comes with a load of core keywords. He can deep strike, he's lone operative, he's stealth, so it gets that -1 to hit. When he's leading a unit, they can't be targeted unless the attacker model is within 12 inches. And if the unit's not within engagement range of any models, then it can be removed from the battlefield and placed into strategic reserve. This is at the end of your opponent's turn. He's a bit limited to what he can join, just being assault squad and veteran squad with jump packs, but overall he is a really good character. It'll add a little bit of flexibility to how you can play. There's not really any other characters in the Space Marine Index that can operate like he can, especially being Primaris with a jump pack. So I do like the look of him. It's just a shame there's nothing else that can go with him, and the squads he's in can't be buffed that much really. I'm going to put these in as a C tier army, but put them at the front. They're probably the strongest of the 3 for an individual character so far, although I do really like the look of Pedro. Next up we have Falcon's Own, the Salamanders. They're a Space Marine indexed army, and they come with 2 special characters. First up is the Captain Atrox Agatone. It comes with a pretty decent flamer and a good hammer weapon called the Melius Noctum. Basically just a souped up thunder hammer that can hit on 2s. Comes with 2 abilities. When he's leading a unit and they make a melee attack, they can re-roll the wound roll. And when an enemy unit is within engagement range of him, they halve the objective control characteristics and models in that unit. He can just join your Tacticus armoured Space Marines, so your Primaris Assault Intercessors and Intercessors, Infernus Squad and Stern Guard veterans. Next up is another captain model for them. This is Vulcan Hestan. He comes with a bolter and another decent looking flame weapon, and he comes with the Spear of Vulcan. Not quite good as the Thunder Hammer on the previous character, but again it's decent enough for taking out your other Space Marine type units. He comes with a funeral plane of 6+, which is quite good. His 2 abilities, one of them allows him to select a unit within 24 inches that's visible to him, and until the end of that phase, every time an Astartes unit with a torrent or motor weapon targets them, they can reroll the wound, which is quite strong. And his other one is he can select 1 objective marker at the start of the game, and if he's within range of it, he gets objective control of 10, leadership 5, and a 4-up funeral pain, which is quite nice. He's a bit weird what he can join. Assault Squad, Command Squad and Tactical Squad all being Firstborn Marines, and then randomly the Infernus Squad, which is a Tacticus Primaris Squad. Both models are fairly good, really thematic in the war gear and what they can do and how they look. 2 really good models, and if you're a big Salamanders fan, They really allow you to play into that flame and melter death quite a bit. So I'm going to put these as a solid tier C army. They could be low B, because they do give the ability to pump out a little bit more flame and melter death on your opponent, but with the range restrictions in place in 10th, with a lot of the melter weapons losing the range, it's probably not going to come up as often as you'd hope for, and as well as the likes of the aggressors losing a substantial amount of shots and losing a lot of the stratagems that actually make them better using flame weapons. They're probably realistically only a solid C army. Next up are Resident Lycans, the Wolfie boys, Space Wolves. These guys just come with so many units, so many restrictions. They're full of flavour, they're full of just good design choices, a little bit too wolfy at times, and some very good units to have. They get sagas rather than the doctrines, which they are fairly good, but they're just far too hard to hit the majority of the time. So you have to actively go out and do something to receive the benefits, such as the saga of the Warrior Born. One of your character models has to go and kill a character model in the other army, and then you get sustain hits 1 on all of your melee weapons, which is quite a good glow up. However, it'd be quite difficult to do in turns 1 or 2, especially if your opponent knows that's what you're going for and will just move the characters out the way. Now, although the sagas are very thematic and quite fun, they're not quite as competitive as the other ones we've seen so far. The stratagems and enhancements are fine, they're all ones that you're likely going to take, so if you did go with the sagas, some very good options there. They have a plethora of units, just a ridiculous amount of units. If you want to go for something wolfy, these guys are right up your street. So many characters to choose from. They are the chapter with the characters. They are absolutely dripping in them. I'm going to slide these guys in just behind Flesh Tearers. Now they might be slightly better than Flesh Tearers if you didn't have the Blood Angel units with them, but you do. Now Space Marines, they have a lot of good units. Some of them are very expensive and they have a lot of characters. But if you're going to play them as Space Wolves, it's just going to be too hard to get the sagas off. So Blood Angels are always going to come out on top, just having that automatic on the charge, +1 to strength and +1 to attacks. Next up, the chapter everyone loves to hate, the Smurfs, the Ultramarines, the poster boys of 40k, and the Space Marines index is definitely just their index with a couple of other units attached onto them. This index has been written in mind with Space Marines, Ultramarines being the main beneficiaries of it. Because of that, all their special units play very well into the army rule and very well into the Gladys Force. They come with Bobby G, who's had a massive glow up in 9th. He's gone up in points a little bit, but his abilities are better, his damage output's better. He's just a much more well-rounded character that's more likely going to stay around and do the business. Now they have a plethora of options to take. The characters, there's so many of them, and they have 2 really good sergeants. Yes, sergeants that they can take. Both of them are relatively cheap as well. You got Telion, who can join scouts and give them either lethal hits, precision or sustain hits. You're taking 10 sniper rifles with precision targeting characters, and you can get lethal hits on top of that. That's going to be very effective. It comes with an infiltrator core rule, scout 6 and stealth. He also gives the unit +1 to the objective control and +1 to the hit roll. So for just 70 points, you can really make a scout squad really stand out. The other sergeant, Kronos, he can join a tank as a tank commander, and once the tank's destroyed, he becomes his own model on the battlefield. Now he gives out a couple of buffs for it. He gives them a ballistic skill of 2, and they can re-roll a wound attack. That's once every time it's selected to shoot. So if you're putting this guy into something that can kick out a lot of his shots, like a Repulsor or a Gladiator Reaper, having that 2+ ballistic skill characteristic is very good. Just outside of him, you've got the likes of Calgar, Tigurius. Again, you've got Bobby G, like I mentioned before. They got Uriel Ventress, who's got some good abilities, but they've got a bit of a standout unit, especially if you are playing into a lot of Tyranid meta. They have the Tyrannic War Veterans, who I thought were very good in 9th edition as well. These guys have anti-Tyranids 4+ on all their weapons, meaning no matter what you're targeting, if you're playing Tyranids, you will wound them on a 4+, and if the Tyranids, not only that, your weapons get the devastating wound ability, so you'll be shooting one of the toughness 10, 11, 12 Tyranid units, you'll be wounding them on a 4+, bypassing the save and going straight to mortal wounds. And if they don't have a shrug, these guys are going to be able to rip things apart. These guys are just S tier. The fact that they can take so many different character models, that the entire index has been written around them being good and feeding straight into the style of play that they want to play, just elevates them right to the top. It's a shame that the other factions within the Space Marine Index haven't been given anything special, but I guess we'll find out at some point if they get a codex or not, to give them a little bit of flavour, because at the moment most of the other ones, they're just very lackluster. The stratagems and enhancements don't feed into them that well. The detachment rules and army rules really aren't thematic for them, and they've all got 1 or 2 special characters to use, and that's it. Last, and I would usually say by no means least, but this time it is very much the least, White Scars are definitely in trash tier. There is absolutely no reason to take White Scars whatsoever. None of the stratagems help them, none of the enhancements help them. The army rule doesn't really help them. The detachment rules, there's one for one battle round, they can use that, well done, and they get 1 character unit that's on foot and buffs melee, but the only melee unit he can join is assault intercessors. So he is absolutely wasted. So in your assault intercessors, he changes the pistols to assault, and they get the lance keyword, so they get a buff when they're charging. Whoop-de-doo. His entire profile is just absurd. What they've done to Corsaro Khan is disgusting. He is absolutely terrible. He's basically just a Bladeguard veteran, but you're paying over 2 times the points for him. He doesn't even get the attack with his Falcon anymore. He's stuck with just a pistol, a bolt pistol at that, for a ranged weapon. He has no abilities there to aid his movement, no abilities to flexibility of attack. But if he kills a character, he gets 1 CP. Great. He's terrible. He's not going to kill any characters. Yep, this guy's going straight into D tier. Absolutely no reason to take White Scars. And White Scars are one of my favourite chapters. I hope the Khan comes back next and they get a bit of love, but at the start of 10th, there is absolutely no reason whatsoever to play White Scars, which is a massive shame. So there we have it. There's all the tiers. You might not agree with them. Some things could probably wiggle around a little bit more. And once we've managed to go through everything more in depth and seeing how things hit the tournament, there will be a bit of a shake-up to what's there. When we get our first data slate or points update, there will be a massive shake-up there as well. But I'm going to expect all the Space Marine factions within the Space Marine Index to remain relatively low, because there's absolutely no reason to take them whatsoever. The Ultramarines are the poster boys of the faction. They got all the special units and the entire index being written purposely for them. So the others are being left behind. Now the ones with their own individual indexes, they all look reasonably strong. There's a couple of things where maybe the points can be tweaked, or the odd rule here or there can be tweaked to move them up, but they're all in quite a good position. Thank you for watching the video. If you have any comments, then pop them below in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, then please hit the like button, as it greatly helps the channel. Hit the subscribe button to see any future Warhammer content. Take it easy, and see you next time for more grim darkness from the 41st millennium.